Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's David Briggs here from the Cathedral of St. John the Divine here in New York City on Sunday the 3rd of January 2021, sending you my very best wishes for this new year. Well, between 1994 and 2002, I had the great honour of being the Director of Music at Gloucester Cathedral in the UK. Part of my responsibilities there was to direct the Three Choirs Festival, and this marvellous chorus of approaching 180 voices. We had 3 home festivals during my time at Gloucester, and as well as the additional festivals at Worcester and neighbouring Hereford cathedrals. And when I left in 2002, I had this really wonderful gift presented me by the members of the chorus, and it's one of my most treasured things that I have here at home, this great carriage clock, and I've just had it restored. I can show you. It's beautiful. Well, at the end of the 18th century, if you were wealthy and living in Austria or Germany, then you might well have had one of these. From the 16th century onwards, when the marvellous skill of the clockmakers was applied to other fields, music-making machines delighted human ears all over Europe. The size of these instruments varied enormously, from small pieces of exquisite delicacy to rather bizarrely grotesque machines, but the way they worked was pretty much standard. A cylinder, usually of wood but sometimes of metal, was made to revolve slowly by a clockwork mechanism. The cylinder was covered in precisely positioned pins or pegs, which, as the cylinder revolved, came into contact with small levers, sometimes looking like a metal comb, which in turn opened and closed the valves underneath a series of very small wooden pipes. As time went on, the whimsical fancy of inventors and craftsmen introduced mechanical music into an astonishing range of objects. There were some that played little delicate jangling tunes, decanters and jugs which lifted off their base, portrait albums when their leaves were turned, snuff boxes when their lids sprang open, and most amazingly of all, there was this device called a nef. It was one of the earliest, and it was apparently a model in precious metal of a fully rigged ship laden with wine and spices, which played tunes as it was pushed around the dining table. I must say I rather like the idea of that. We know that Mozart wrote 3 pieces for mechanical clock, just 1 year before his death in 1791. These were on a commission by one Count Joseph Dame. The Count set up an exhibition presenting tableaus after a manner of waxwork displays, which made use of these instruments from among his collection of automata. Mozart almost certainly accepted this commission out of financial desperation, and we know that he wasn't too excited about the prospect of writing for a musical clock. He wrote in a letter to his wife Constanza, "I've now made up my mind to compose at once the adagio for the clockmaker, and then to slip a few ducats into the hand of my dear wife. And this I have done, but as it's a composition that I really detest, unfortunately I've not been able to finish it. I compose a little bit every day, but I have to break off now and then as I get so bored. And indeed I'd give the whole thing up if it wasn't for such an important reason to go on with it. But I still hope that I shall be able to force myself gradually to finish it. If it were for a large clock, and it would sound like a proper organ, I might just get some fun out of it. But as it is, the works of the instrument consist solely of shrill little pipes, which sound far too high-pitched and too childish for my taste." In fact, we know that Mozart played the organ rather brilliantly. There are famous reports of him improvising at St. Bavo, Haarlem, when he visited with his father as a young teenager. In today's performance, as you'll hear, I'm rather imagining that Mozart would probably prefer a much bolder approach than these little 4-foot pipes. Mozart's F minor piece for Vendôme did not gain the title Fantasia until it was arranged for piano duet during the last century. However, it's a totally appropriate name for a piece which is even more fantastic than the machine for which it was created. It begins rather like Handel's Messiah, with a serious overture in the French style. This is followed by a Bachian fugue, which then brings us to another statement of the opening motive, quite amazingly in F sharp minor, the flattened supertonic. I've always thought this to be such an incredible moment, a sort of counter-exposition stated just one semitone above what was heard at the outset of the piece. Like Madge, my wife, said the other day, can this really be by Mozart? The harmonies seem to be at least 100 years in advance of what you might imagine, really pushing the limits of chromaticism in a truly late Romantic vein. In the middle, there is a totally sublime andante, which I think is worthy of any of Mozart's very finest string quartets. Then the overture idea returns, and the Fantasia finishes with a marvel of double counterpoint. And finally, a fabulous stretto. Apparently Mozart once said that Bach was the only composer from whom he could learn anything. Mozart's technique and invention in this medium rival the mathematical precision which created the interlocking gears of the mechanism for which this Fantasia was written. Please enjoy.